Suikoden II is an intense, dark game, but it's also a game full of so much humor and compassion. It's a game that really makes you love its heroes and hate its villains, until the humanity of some of the villains is shown. Some of the villains. You just have to play this game to really see what I mean.
Bloop boop boo. Bloop doop doo. Bloop doop da boo.
Hi, I'm Michael. Thanks for watching my review of Suikoden II. This game was developed and published by Konami in 1998. It was directed and produced by Yoshitaka Murayama with designers Fumi Ishikawa and Junko Kawano. It is a mostly sprite-based, turn-based role-playing game. Instead of facing world-ending threats and killing gods, as you do in many JRPGs, this game, and all of the games in the Suikoden series, deals mostly with the political struggles in just one country, the city-states of Joustin. This game deals with war and all of the horrors that come with it, but also with the human struggle to overcome all of that war and death. A remaster of Suikoden 1 and 2 was released earlier this year, and I highly recommend you get it. These are expensive games on the original PlayStation, especially Suikoden 2, which is going for around $200, last I checked. Both of these games are fantastic, and I don't think you'll regret playing them. I do recommend that you play Suikoden 1 first, though. The mainline Suikoden games all take place in the same world, and Suikoden 2 is a sequel to the first game. Though it is completely playable on its own, there are some fun story connections between the games, and a lot of characters from the first game appear in the second. There are also some bonuses if you load your completed Suikoden 1 save file into this game. I'm trying something a little new with this review. Fractions of a point in my score out of 5 for each main section of the game. I think this might help my scoring be more precise in the end. But anyway, enough preamble, let's get to my mostly spoiler-free review of this fantastic game. A friend from undergrad saw my last video game review on Final Fantasy Tactics and said, "I think everyone should go play this game and get politically radicalized in the process." He was exactly right about that game, but the same sentiment applies to Suikoden 2. The game will radicalize you less in the reasons the different factions do what they do, but more so how they go about doing it. I'll be vague to avoid as many spoilers as possible, but the villains in this game take part in false flag operations, lots of murder, and just about every means possible to divide the people they want to conquer. They set them against each other by sowing thoughts of racism, classism, and prejudice against refugees. The heroes prevail when they see past these tactics and view each other as equals worthy of respect. We should all learn from this. When people in power tell us to distrust or hate each other because of our differences, we need to see through that. We need to always see the humanity in each other. We need to ask, what does this leader or this party have to gain by dividing us? Is it that we're more powerful when we're unified, so they're neutralizing a threat to their dominance? Beyond these larger themes, Suikoden 2 excels in how it tells a very human, very personal story. At the heart of the story is the relationship between the hero, his adopted sister, and his childhood best friend. It deals with biological family, found family, and dedication to your community. This story pulls no punches. The writing, characters, graphics, design, music, and gameplay all work together to make you really feel things. If you don't feel things, there may be no hope for you. Like with most of the games I've reviewed recently, it's not exactly easy to place each character neatly into the hero, villain, or NPC categories. Some are pretty obvious though. But also, I'm not going to go through every character because there are 108 recruitable characters in this and in every mainline Suikoden game. Recruiting all of the characters is part of the fun of the Suikoden series. Of course, with 108 recruitable characters, plus a handful of villains and NPCs on top of those 108, it's obvious that not every character will be fully fleshed out. Some just fulfill roles in your castle and have a one-dimensional personality. But a fairly large percentage of them do have decent personalities. Here are just a few, okay, more than a few, and I won't specifically mention for most if they are heroes or villains. The hero of the game, canonically named Ryu, is a silent protagonist. Because of that, he doesn't have much of a personality, but you do have a handful of times that you can shape his personality, including one fairly large fork in the story that can lead to a good ending either way if you play it correctly. Jowie, I say Jowie, I think it's probably supposed to be Joey, but I say Jowie. Jowie is the hero's childhood best friend. He comes from a higher class background, and you can tell that just from looking at his clothing, his posture, and how he speaks. But he's also really clever, crafty, brave, and a fiercely devoted friend to Ryu. Nanami is Ryu's adopted older sister. I love her so much. She's the best character in the game, in my opinion. She's bold and full of life and totally hilarious. She also really cares about Ryu. I love how many little bespoke animations were made just for her. They tell the player so much about her character. You can even learn about her from her attack animations. Luca is one of the all-time great villains to those who have played this game. You can tell from his portrait and his first lines that he's the absolute worst. He's the politically powerful person that even his subordinates have to tiptoe around. That is so telling. Raud is a great example of that kind of despicable, opportunistic villain with a very punchable face. I can't say much about Jilia, but she's a fascinating character. I similarly can't say much about Pilika, another important character who's really interesting. I count about 24 characters who returned from Suikoden I as heroes, and there are several more who return as NPCs. Victor is the same grumpy but overall affable bear we know. Flick is still stern, fair, and noble, and also dashing. Apple's character is greatly expanded in a really satisfying way. Luke is even more of a jerk in this game, and I love it. Hicks and Tengar are basically the same characters they were in the first game, but they're still really engaging. Jean is more fascinating the more you learn about her, even though that isn't much at all. Vicky is hilarious, especially if you read any of the notes she leaves in the suggestion box. Futch has grown a lot since the last game, and it's interesting to see him deal with his trauma from the last game. I love Lorelei and Georg. I know his name is supposed to be pronounced George, but I prefer Georg. They're not that fascinating here, really, but if you have Richmond, the Private Eye, look into their stories, there's a lot of foreshadowing for Suikoden V, which came out 8 years later in 2006. The game is full of so many great characters, like Shu, the shady capitalist, who does some really despicable things in order to help the good guys. Eiley, Rena, and Bulgan, the traveling performer siblings. Hilda, the innkeeper, and her husband Alex, who learns that the real treasure is the wife you ignored along the way. Annabelle, the tough but complicated mayor of Muse, and her shady assistant Jess. Teresa, who essentially has to work to make up for her father's racism. Kiba and Klaus. And Nina, the really fun student character. Seriously, I love her. Then we have Kolgan and Seed, Camus, and Miklatov, and Simone and Vincent. 3 pairs of men who seem very close, and I'm here for it. Oh, also there's Grandpa's ex-boyfriend Han. And then there are 70-some more characters. Seriously, part of the fun of this game is picking your favorites. Let me know who yours are in the comments below. Hey, are you enjoying this review? Please let me know by giving this video a like. It really helps this channel. It'll make me feel nice, and it'll make you feel nice. You'll feel even nicer if you subscribe to the channel so you can see all of our new videos. We review and generally talk about all sorts of media, but especially video games and music. If you're only into one kind of content, check out our playlists. We have playlists for video games, music, covers I've done, and even niche topics like music theory. We also have a long playlist of each discussion and review video in chronological order of the original media's release, so that you can maybe trace with us the trends in media as time moves forward. Also, let me know your comments on Suikoden II. I'd love to read them. Anyway, back to the video. There are so many delightful little touches to the graphics of this game. Birds fly out of the way as you run toward them. There are so many bespoke little animations for Ryu, and especially Nanami, as I mentioned. These and many other little sprite animations have so much character, and tell you so much without any text. The dynamic camera in battles is really engaging, and I think it beats the 3D graphics of Final Fantasy VII and Wild Arms. Speaking of 3D graphics, though, there are a handful of awkward 3D graphical cutscenes. They don't mesh with the graphics of the game very well for the most part, but there are so few of them that I barely noticed. But for some reason, the one in the title screen doesn't bother me. Maybe it's because it's not really integrated into the game completely. The character designs in this game are good, and they say a lot about the characters. But I think maybe the weakest character design is Ryu's. I get that he's supposed to be kind of an everyman, and he has enough androgynous points about his design to make it possible for potentially any player to see themselves in him, but he just kind of looks like a Boy Scout. This is just highlighted by how good basically everyone else looks, especially the most important other characters, Jowie and Nanami. The character portraits got a bit of an upgrade from the first game. I think the new ones here on this side look so much better than the ones from the first game on this side. I think the best thing about the design in Suikoden II, though, is the towns. The visual designs are fairly varied, and when you add in the variety in the music for the different towns, they feel like completely distinct places. The NPCs in the towns typically have things to say that are specific to their town, too, which makes sense because each of the towns in this game typically has its own problems. The composer of Suikoden 1 and 2, Miki Higashino, is one of the all-time great video game composers. I love how she blends typical Western sounds that we most often hear in video games with Eastern sounds, but also Middle Eastern sounds. Now, I don't know much about non-Western music, so if I'm getting any of this wrong, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, I think it's most interesting when she finds the common threads in different musical styles, certain timbres, modes, harmonies, and playing styles. And these common threads are often what makes the music sound medieval European, which I find interesting. I was talking with one of the common collaborators on this channel, Ramin, about Higashino's music and how brilliant she was, and I sent a link to him of her song The Next Job, which is what I made a cover of for this review. You're hearing it in the background now. I mentioned to him my thought about it sounding medieval European, and Ramin basically said, yeah, this is a medieval Christmas carol, Person and Hodier. Oh. Well, my point still stands. What I especially love in the score for this game is Higashino's work with vocals. The choral music is thrilling, and the different styles of solo singing present in the game are really, really good work. You've heard me talk about how much I like the YouTube channel Resonant Arc pretty often on this channel, if this is not your first time here. They pointed out in a video a while back that when he was working on the music for Final Fantasy VII, Nobuo Uematsu decided against having better quality synths and actual recorded instruments on the soundtrack because he was afraid of the slower load time. He thought gamers wouldn't tolerate it. But then Uematsu played Suikoden 1 and heard how great Higashino's music was, which basically convinced him to pull out all the stops for Final Fantasy VIII. So, in some way, we have Higashino's music to thank for how great the music is in Final Fantasy VIII. Oh, and please correct me if I got any point of that story wrong. But it's not just Higashino's music that's great in this game. There's some really great sound effect work, too. The item acquired and person recruited sound, which is the same as it was in the first game, is one of my favorite video game sound effects of all time. The sound effects as a whole are sometimes more realistic, or at times so goofy and cartoony. It gives even more character to this delightful game. As I've talked about in several other RPG reviews, I actually get tired of playing many RPGs by the end of the game. I don't know what the exact magic is in Suikoden 2, but I never get tired of it. I think the most important part is that the battles are quick. The majority of the battles in the game are typical turn-based battles, but having a 6-person party and lots of options for who can be in your party allow the fights some variety that most RPGs just can't match. The auto battle option is a good idea unless you have 2 or more characters who have a really good unite attack. Unite attacks can still be devastating in this game, but I think they tended to be more useful in Suikoden 1. A really great addition to the gameplay in Suikoden II when it comes to battles is multiple rune slots. In the first game, each character could only have one rune. Here, characters can have up to 3, depending on the magical proclivities of the character. The mix and match qualities can really change up your strategy in a fun way. Outside of the regular battles, this game also has large-scale tactical war battles and one-on-one duels. The duels are the same as the first game. Basically, a rock, paper, scissors game where you can guess what your opponent might do based on the line of dialogue they give you before their action. There are a lot fewer duels in this game than there were in the previous game, though. The war battles have undergone a pretty dramatic shift. In Suikoden 1, the battles were essentially another large-scale rock, paper, scissors game where you can use a few other tactics to guess what the enemy's next move might be, and you just have to get the opposing army's numbers down to 0 before your numbers get there. Here, you actually control units on a battlefield grid, and you have your units attack enemy units similarly to Fire Emblem or other tactical RPGs. I go back and forth between thinking that this is more engaging or a bit of a bother compared to the fast-paced war battles of the first game. This is especially apparent when you realize that many of the battles in this game are scripted losses. You do have to keep in mind, though, that characters who die in the war battles can potentially permanently die, which would lock you out of the best ending of the game. Keep lots of extra save slots of your game. There are a handful of quality of life upgrades in the gameplay compared to the first game. The inventory seems easier to manage most of the time. Less grinding is necessary, and it happens quickly when you do want to grind. One of the biggest upgrades, the blinking mirror, when you finally get it, is considered a special item and is permanently in your special items menu. No more having to walk all the way back to headquarters if you forgot to take it with you when you warp out. The minigames in Suikoden 2 are surprisingly fun. Chin Chinaren returns. It was called Storm in the first game, and it's still pretty fun, and it's a quick way to earn some money if you need to. There's also fishing, whack-a-mole, this rope climbing minigame, dancing, and cooking. The cooking minigame is especially fun with its television game show atmosphere and its melodramatic subplot if you play through all of the cooking challenges. I do have a couple gripes in the gameplay, though. It's way too easy to hit X and make a dialogue choice when you only meant to make the whole text box appear. Sometimes when you're dashing around the map, it can be hard to stop the NPC that you want to talk to who's also moving. I also had a few weird bugs in my game. There were a couple weird glitches that impeded my progress until I restarted and tried again, and the music didn't load at several very noticeable points. Let me know if you noticed any bugs like this if you were playing the original game too. I'm curious if there might be something wrong with my disc. Reviewers at the time of the game's initial release, according to Metacritic's aggregate score, gave the game an 82%. I'll be honest, I find that score quite low. I give this game a score of 96%. Here's where this game fits in with other games we've reviewed on the channel. If you've talked with me about video games before, you've likely heard me say that Final Fantasy VI is my favorite game of all time. Suikoden II is only 2 points away from that. That's a big deal. Also, I have to note that Ramin and Erica's scores are factored into a few of these games too, and that if I went back and looked closely at a few of these scores, they might go up or down a little. But I think the list is pretty accurate for games that were important for me at some point in my life, and that I think are still stellar games. So, should you play this game? Absolutely yes. If you haven't played it before, please do get it. I hear almost entirely good things about the remaster, and the bonus for that is you get the first game too. I recommend that you play Suikoden 1 first so you can catch all of the story connections. Also, the remaster gets you 2 great games for way less than the price of each of these games individually. Get this remaster. Tell Konami that we want other games in the series to be remastered, and that we want more new Suikoden content. Pretty please? Anyway, that should be about it. Thanks for watching my review. Here is another video that YouTube thinks you might like, so check that out. Down here is a playlist of other game reviews find another gem, or compare my scores against yours. Until I see you next, maintain your groovy selves.